being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a grab.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's the warrior spirit right there, boy.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
90-yard touchdown. 90-yard touchdown.
So this is going to be picked off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Herbert sets his feet, takes a shot downfield, has Guyton. Caught! Touchdown, Chargers!
That's the greatest throw I've ever seen.
Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast, fresh off a week 1 victory, and for us fans, much needed redemption. Andy, your host here, joined as always by Jack and Alistair. Gentlemen, welcome. Jack, How was your week or round 1 viewing experience, sir?
It was great, actually. It was, we just talked about it offline, but unfortunately, halfway through the first quarter, Game Pass through Chrome decided to crap itself, and the score popped up. And so being disciplined all day was completely went out the window, but it made for interesting viewing considering what happened in the second half. So, a little bit disappointing in that way, but still enjoyed it. We still got the W. Very, very happy. Onward upward to Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, that's a shame, man. We were far more vigilant in our endeavours to save the scores, and Al, we had a pretty good weekend, mate. What did you make of it?
You know what I made of it. You're sitting next to me the whole time while I just we got a really good showcase of how Andy and I differ, even though we're great friends. I'm the kind of classic emotive Italian type where as things get difficult, I start to stress. I'm throwing my beanie. I'm kind of throwing stuff, getting angry, getting concerned. Andy was cool, calm and collected. Our host was cool as a cucumber. Never in doubt, right, mate?
Never in doubt. Well, if you can't have faith in week 1, when can you have faith? You know? So, I drunk the Kool-Aid. I just needed to sit there. I think if they had converted that 2-point conversion, it might have been a different story. However, shout out to our great listeners. Thank you for your ongoing support, guys. If you are new joining us, welcome. Please do us a quick favour and hit the like and subscribe buttons to our channel if you haven't already, so we can help get this show out to more awesome, like-minded Chargers fans like you guys. Also, hit us up on Twitter too at @TDU_Chargers just for a bit more social media chin wagging. All right. Obviously, a heap to get into today. A sharp turnaround to the Chiefs this Thursday night at Arrowhead. We'll pick a few pleasant surprises that we've each sort of enjoyed coming out of week 1. But before any of that, Los Angeles Chargers 24, Las Vegas Raiders 19. Ugh. Field goal for field goal started off this divisional encounter. A nice 24-yard catch and run by free agent tight end Gerald Everett helped set up a score on the Chargers' opening drive of this season. Derwin James making his presence felt early, hurdling Josh Jacobs for a sack on a safety blitz, bringing up 2nd and 16. And some mistimed throws by Derek Carr, aiding the Chargers' goal line defense in keeping the visitors to 3. Davante Adams already establishing his connection with his former college quarterback and was showing some headaches for the Chargers DBs early on. Yeah, it was the Herbert and Keenan show on the next drive, setting up Xander Horvath for his first touchdown reception in the Powder Blues. Then a incredibly athletic Drew Tranquil interception at midfield paved the way for Justin Herbert to take advantage of his incredible arm talent with a 30-yard laser to DeAndre Carter just before halftime.
BB.
A nice touch pass to Brandon Bolden saw the Raiders claw back to within a score on their first offensive drive of the second half. But the Chargers answered right back, marching down the field to see an incredible effort by Gerald Everett, not only to catch the ball just inside the sideline, but then to fight his way into the end zone with a defender hanging off him, capping off a pretty good first appearance for the Chargers. After Hunter Renfrow recovered his own fumble on 4th and 4, the Raiders managed a field goal to see the score at 13-24. But interceptions on back-to-back drives by Derek Carr allowed the Chargers offense to chew up more precious clock. For what it's worth, a great catch by Davante Adams on 2nd and goal, but they missed the 2-point attempt, and that saw The scores sit at 19-24 for the remaining 4 minutes and 32 of the game. Now, after handing the ball back to the Raiders, a great defensive effort by Joey Bosa on third down, Staley sent the big boys blitzing Van Noy, Bosa, Mack, Fox, and Tranquil, with Mack Fox forcing the strip sack and the turnover on downs. Chargers go 1-0 up. Football in hand to finish the game. FTR. Couple of quick box stats. Herbert 26 of 34, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Austin Eckler led the rushes in a quiet day on the ground, 14 carries, 36 yards. Keenan Allen was great before he went off injured, 4 receptions, 66 yards. And DeAndre Carter, pretty special, stepping up into the role, 3 receptions, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Chargers defense, 6 sacks, Mack with 3 of them, 3 INTs without JC Jackson on the field, and a forced fumble. Jack, mate, what was your first take of the game?
Andy, you're probably sitting there saying, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. My first takeaway was the fact that who would have picked that Xander Horvath is the first Charger of 2022 to get a touchdown. He looked really good. He was playing in that fullback tight end role, blocking really well. He catches the ball and moves really well. I thought that was fantastic. And based on my analysis last week, you're talking about a Swiss Army knife or a Leatherman, I think it was, to Justin Herbert. What another weapon to have on that offense. Well done, Xander Horvath. It all makes sense that you weren't playing in the preseason because clearly you are something that we're going to be using a lot this year. What about you, Alistair?
We saved him, didn't we, until it really mattered. Didn't give any indication how many snaps he'd play, and we used him very well. You know, the main important point for me, just to start things off, we found a way to win. Week 1, there are 16 teams feeling like absolute shit and their fan bases, and the other 16 don't. And everyone knows it's not going to be perfect. A lot of these starters haven't played. You just find a way to get the first win, and you know you can improve on all the little issues you had over the course of the season. And of course, we'll get into those. But really, this game could have been a blowout, in my opinion. You had some funny buggers happening with the referee kind of spotting the ball at the 2-yard line after the Asante Samuel interception. Wasn't quite sure of that rule, but it seemed like that really set us back on the next drive, whereas we started the 25 there, potentially very different scoreline. And then little things, as you mentioned, Andy, you had Adderley's forced fumble of Hunter Renfrow just falling back into the Raiders' hands. Trey McKitty dropped a catch that would have led to a first down. So just
that was on the drive you were talking about at the 2.
Yep, that's right. So found a way to win. That's all that matters. 1-0, took the chocolates, defeated the most odious team in the NFL, and it feels fantastic that football's back.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think just to sort of glaze on yours a little bit, Al, we didn't charger. The Chargers didn't charger. Like in years past, we would have so easily found a way to lose this game of football. But good resolve and, hell, good balance on all 3 phases of the team, as the coach would say. And I think that's one of my sort of great observations or keen observations from the game is that we performed not necessarily as well on offense as we might have liked or anticipated due to a few things, but on defense we were incredible. And everyone worried so much without JC Jackson what was going to happen to Vontae Adams. We found a way to team defense, and look, he was good. Like, he still had 116 yards, 9 receptions, and a touchdown thereabouts. Still had a game, but didn't win them the game. Didn't lose us the game. J.K. Scott, we'll get into him more, no doubt, but we just did really well on all 3 phases of the game, and it wasn't perfect, but it was enough to get the W and just put that first one in the bank.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right saying that we didn't charge. I think we came quite close at certain times. They're going for it on 4th and short with the Herbert quarterback sneak. There are a couple of times, I think generally speaking, Herbert looked fairly in control behind, under centre, I should say, behind Lindsley. There seemed to be an air of calmness on the sideline. It was just, we're going to work, this is what we're doing. The only times that I would say that Herbert looked slightly out of control was when he was running towards the end zone, and he sort of was like, am I going to go for it? No. Am I going to go for it? No. No. And then there was the roughing the passer, which I thought we were fairly lucky to get. And the other one, as I noted before, was that sneak, which I think was fairly poorly timed. And that's just a quarterback probably, he'll learn from that, I'm sure. Not the right game, time or situation to do something like that in. But yeah, I agree, Andy. I think it was we came close, but the three phases, as you mentioned, J.K. Scott, the special teams, that hidden yardage, I think came close to making the difference.
Absolutely. And we had two rookies as our gunners, Jasir Taylor on one side, Dean Leonard on the other. I think Andy made the observation watching live. When your hang time is between 5 and 5.4 seconds, even your biggest lineman can get down the field 40 yards to cover it off. That is absurd hang time
Insane.
by our new punter, who's just endearing himself to the team at a rapid rate. On your comments about the defense, Andy, I mean, I've never seen a Chargers defense that I can recall do what this Chargers defense did. Come out and so consistently sack the opposing team's quarterback, forcing pressure without necessarily blitzing, although he did a bit. Staley was using disguise. It was incredible to see the number of weapons this team now has at its disposal to confuse the quarterback, to attack the quarterback. Just one player I want to give a special shout out to, Bryce Callahan in the slot. It was one of the best debuts I can recall of a Chargers player anywhere. He was targeted 7 times on the weekend. He only gave up 3 catches for 21 yards and a passer rating of 10.7 when targeted. He effectively shut Hunter Renfrow out of the game. He picked one off in front of him at a critical juncture, and he could have had a second interception, because if you looked at Asante's one, who was right there with his head turned around, getting hands on the ball, Bryce Callahan. He was everything we were hoping to get from Chris Harris Jr. when he signed, and more, and I can't wait to see him patrol that slot cornerback position.
Yeah, Chris Harris who? Yeah, he was fantastic. And you're right, could have had 2 picks, but I'm kind of glad that Asante took that one. That was pretty spectacular. A specky, as we call it here.
Question for you,
The
Andy.
greatest interception that Staley's ever seen.
Wasn't he going off on the sidelines? But he's calm, Staley, and mic'd up. Yeah. When his interceptions happened, he's just like, go. He's ready. Go. He's ready for the next play.
He called Drew Tranquils as well. He was like, Drew. Yep. No,
it's brilliant. Great. You should go and watch it if you haven't already on the Chargers YouTube channel. Yeah. Andy, question for you. What did you think about the linebacker play for the Chargers in this game? Because it was a hotly discussed topic all throughout the preseason. Is it a weak room? Is it a strong room? What did you make of Kenneth Murray and Drew Tranquil and Van Noy to the extent he played at linebacker?
I thought that Kenneth Murray came out like a dog, like a rabid dog, and he was pretty good in coverage, which he struggled in previously. He seemed to improve there, and he was just wanting to hit. And his second and third efforts I thought were great, and it was awesome to see, because there has been a lot of doubt cast over him, but he got a tick from me this week. Drew Tranquil, look, his interception might completely overshadow. I thought that pick was fantastic, and he was working really well as the linebacker dropping back into coverage and that sort of Tampa 2 looking show that we had in the backfield.
Who does Carr think he is trying to fit the ball in that tie window, buddy? You are not wearing 10 on your back.
Yeah.
Don't try that shit.
Kyle Van Noy, good in parts. He probably offers a lot more than we see, and maybe his actual production in a play-by-play isn't there, but he was he missed a read and gave up a first down. Just kind of looked a bit. He was on Brandon Bolden for that touchdown, and just picked up the read laid out of the flat, and it was a great throw. But yeah, he was just slow on it and gave Bolden an extra couple of yards. So maybe play by play, I thought Murray and Tranquil were probably my top two linebackers, and I thought the linebacker play was really good.
Yeah, I kind of think that they're playing with their capability with what we need them to play with. I think that's kind of where I sit looking at that. There are a couple of times where I thought the decision making by the middle linebackers, just when we're trying to bracket someone like Devontae Adams, they've bitten on a play fake or they've just made a small read which has put the cornerback, whether it was Asante or Michael Davis, just on an island a bit. And it was fairly clear, I think, that Staley made pretty substantial adjustments after the first or second drive that the Raiders had, because it was clear that Devontae was finding space in that sort of just into, not necessarily over the middle, but just in the middle of the field, about maybe, 5 yards in from the sideline. So I thought that was really good coaching as well. I think we saw the defense adapt more so than we have before, because I think for the first time Staley's got the players that allow him to adapt. And we touched on it in the intro, Andy. We saw Derwin James, I think, playing free. And that's what Derwin James does. He's up and around the ball. He's confusing Derek Carr. And that one, when he leaps over the defender and smacks him in the back, I reckon Derek Carr had poop in his pants for the rest of that game, because he did not see that coming at all. And I think that's what we're going to expect.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So good. But I think, the linebackers, we put Derwin James in there as that strong safety coming in, playing up. They're everything that we need them to be. Alistair, I actually have a question. My first question was that was like, are our linebackers good enough? And I think they might be. This is about Gerald Everett. Did you expect to see the production and the blocking out of him at the game that we saw out of him this weekend, or this Monday?
No, I didn't. I was impressed by some of his highlights he had for the Seahawks and the Rams, and the discussion around him has been positive all training camp. But we didn't see him in the preseason. There have been some kind of niggling injury concerns. And just to see the different ways he can impact a defense, he's a true weapon. As you said, Jack, he looks like he can hold his own in the running game. It's one of the, there won't be too many better touchdown catches this year by a Charger. He's managed to, firstly, let's not forget, that is ad-libbing. He's initially run a flat route and then seen that Herbert's been forced to the left of the pocket, decided, okay, a la Travis Kelce here, I need to get on my bike and start working into a space. And then Herbert to have the wherewithal to throw a back shoulder and then just one hand and then also stay in bounds, take it over the goal line.
The power that you needed to have that is huge.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Huge play. So very pleasantly surprised and, exceeding any of the raw athleticism that someone like a Jared Cook brought to the table last year as a very old veteran. So great start. Let's hope he can continue it. Well, if we're in the vein of questions, I'll kind of throw another one, maybe back at you, Jack. Did you see enough from this Chargers offense after Keenan went out injured to make you think that while he's out, the offense can score, 24 plus points per game, or is the team going to really have to lean on the defense in this next stretch?
Oh, well, that links to the Gerald Everett, Xander Horvath, DeAndre Carter, Joshua Palmer, Mike Williams. Mike Williams was, whether he was being bracketed and covered really well, that was who they decided to shut down after the absolute destruction Mike Williams and Justin Herbert did to the Raiders in the final game of last season. I think so. I think we've talked about it on this podcast before. The wide receiver room is one of the deepest in living memory, and also I think one of the deepest position groups in the league when we look at wide receivers. So I think we have more than enough weapons. I think Lombardi has more than enough in his playbook now with Justin Herbert in his second year. Herbert, Williams going down, because there was an observation and a question that I kind of have, perhaps Andy, of you, is, is this sign of an injury to Allen? Is this a sign of things to come? But I think we've built that wide receiver room to have depth. I think we'll be fine. Andy, I sort of threw you a little question there. Do you think, you made an observation about the severity of Allen's injury, given your medical background or training perhaps, or some study? the resident physio, because I always go to you when I've got something niggling and you really help me out.
Take the compliments when they come, Andy. Basically pre-med, right?
That's me.
Basically pre-med. So do you reckon this is a sign of things to come for Allen, and do we think that Josh Palmer needs to show a bit more?
Well, I mean, he's had injury history before. the way I saw it live was that it was probably better that he sort of twinged it when he was turning into his route rather than a full extension hamstring injury where you're either landing or taking off with a sort of eccentric load pushing out. That's where you get kind of the higher tenderness injuries, which are bad and longer. So, the reports were, Staley's pretty sneaky with this sort of thing about, he might, who knows, and never rule him out. But like, he's not playing for at least sort of 3 to 4 weeks. You wouldn't have thought. He's not a young strapping Keenan Allen anymore. So you got to nurture him. Second part of your question regarding the other receivers, or was it just purely on Keenan's injury?
Yeah, just in general. Like, did you see enough from? We wax lyrical about DeAndre Carter and Everett. Did we see enough from Mike Williams and Josh Palmer? Well, to sort of go, oh, we'll be okay without Keenan.
Only targeted 7 times between them.
Yeah. Well, no receiver was targeted more than 4 times, I don't think. So you just see that Mike Williams had a bad drop on third down, I think, there, and right at the line to gain. That was infuriating. And look, they probably did have a fair bit of tape on Herbert to Williams decimating them in the second half. So potentially was covered harder, probably by Nate Hobbs, who would have.
Yeah, he played well.
Talk about a sneaky good player. We referred to it in the preview show. He was excellent, and so was Anthony Averett, who they picked up off Baltimore. He held his own on Williams as well. There were definitely a few challenges, I thought, in this game. I'm happy to start with one. Struggling to establish the running game. 31 attempts for 76 yards. That's a lot of short runs that aren't changing the game. And it's hard to know if it was a blocking issue up front. It seemed that there were a few occasions where that was the case, whether it was Filer or Pipkins. Some of the time they were struggling. And Max Crosby, even though he didn't affect the box score with sacks, he was affecting the running game. So was Denzel Perryman and their linebackers generally, and their interior D-line. They really had their way with us from a run game perspective. And if you had a recipe for the Raiders to win this game, they got half of it right. They really bottled up our running game. Lombardi kept going square peg round hole towards the end, trying to make it work. And Staley was saying in the presser, he wasn't critical of it because he said, it's not like these were 0-yard gains. It was, they were there to be made. The plays were there to be made. We just weren't executing the blocks. At a certain point, I thought we needed to pivot. That was one thing I thought we found challenging. Need to turn that around ASAP against Kansas City because you need to really have that balanced offense. You can't go missing and score 0 points for a quarter and a half against that team. You'll lose the game. Anything, maybe Jack, like something that you thought the Chargers struggled with in this particular game?
We don't like to single out plays here, but I didn't think Trey McKitty had a great start to the season. If we were hoping that he would be a sort of a second tight end weapon, he looked a little bit out of sorts, both in the passing game and also in the blocking game a number of times. So he just looked a little underprepared. I think I have faith in Trey McKitty that he'll work hard and he'll clearly knows that he didn't have a great game. So that was one thing. And you think about if Everett does go down with an injury, there's probably a positional group that we're really going to struggle with to replicate that production. And this is it challenging or is it a positive? I didn't think we looked amazing. It looked like we were blowing off cobwebs in all 3 phases a little bit. So, when's the cohesion point? Is this Staley building? And we have enough veterans on the team to say, well, let's build. We don't have to come out all guns blazing. We don't have to come out and smash week 1. We don't have to do a Kansas City Chiefs. It would have been nice to see that, perhaps. But yeah, where's this cohesion point? What was that?
Cardinals are done, mate.
Cardinals are done. You hit it here first on this podcast. So, yeah, McKitty, the cohesion I didn't think was there. But again, none of these guys played in any preseason games. So, yeah, don't want to be super negative on it.
McKitty did, and he showed exactly what he showed on Monday. What he
Still a
showed
young
in the
player,
preseason.
though. We'll give him
Yeah.
some time. And Parham's injured. Maybe when Parham comes up, we see McKitty's snaps reduced. But Andy and I definitely agreed. He was that kind of standout worst player, both sides of the ball, arguably anyway. Or the kicker for the Chargers, who I'm just going to put everyone on notice. When we were talking about this at the start of the season, he's sub 500 when you go 49 yards and beyond. It's a problem. I know that there's a very low baseline of expectation amongst Chargers fans. Basically, if you are able-minded and able-bodied, that's cool as a kicker for Chargers fans. As long as you're not the worst kicker in the league, we seem to think that that's an acceptable state for your field goal attempts to be in. I say, watch the space. If you need to bring in competition, do so. Hopkins is now continuing a trend throughout his career into the preseason when he missed one from 49. Now in a game where that puts a 2-touchdown margin into the game if he executes there. All right, I won't flog a dead horse, but want to see more from Dustin Hopkins.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I also thought that the thing I noted on last week's show that seam routes are this defense's weakness, and if we play against teams with really accomplished tight ends with quarterbacks that can fit it in that window between the safety and the linebacker, they're going to get a lot of yards on us. And it just so happens that we probably go up against one of the best tight end quarterback duos in the league this week. So it'll be interesting to see how Staley makes those adjustments and whether maybe Derwin James plays a little deeper. I also thought Nas had a really good game too. He was quiet in a good way, which was great, tackling like a monster.
Yeah, that forced fumble on Renfro was great, coming in from the side there. Really impressed with, for me, how, Asante Samuel's game as a whole, he really improved on Devontae as the game went on. I sort of left that out of my sort of game review spiel, but it's worth noting that he did improve and got a big pass breakup kind of late in the game. I was really impressed, Jack. I know you spoke about the cohesion point. I was really impressed with the cohesion across the board. The Staley spoke in his press conference about getting the snap right to the punter, getting the ball there. It was there every time, and there was one close one, but yeah, I mean, you stole my best gear with the lineman recovering the protecting the kicks. Can't believe you pinched that, you bastard. It was fantastic to watch. There was great cohesion on defense. The interior's working. You won't see it on the stat sheet with, I think, one tackle between Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson. And at times, look, there's another PFF score in there that is a blowaway when I think they gave him a 29.8 or a 30. Sebastian Joseph Days, that is, overall. And I'm going, well, we stifled a pretty good run game and rushing attack in Josh Jacobs, and I thought we got 6 sacks on Derek Carr and myriad pressures. I mean, they didn't at times get a whole lot of push, but they managed to bring enough pressure on the interior to allow the edge guys, all of them, to get pressure on the outside and crush Carr. So
another little tidbit was when you saw him mic'd up when Staley went over to SJD, and you heard SJD go 38 or 37 yards, baby, 37 yards. So clearly SJD doesn't care how well he plays, perhaps, but it's just what we held the other team to. So that's a great little tidbit into, you're right, Andy. Who cares about a PFF score of 29 when the fact is you hold a great running back room realistically that have averaged, what are they, 124 yards in the preseason or whatever they did or something?
132 off the top
132.
of the head.
So fantastic.
Yeah.
I've got a couple quick questions because we'd be remiss not to hear from both of you on these topics. One's about the O-line to you, Jack, but I'll let Andy go first because Andy's kind of a squat, stubby running back type. What did you think, Andy, about our kind of how we've deployed running backs? So clearly, just in terms of the numbers, we had Eckler get 14 carries, Josh Kelly have 4, Sony Michel have 7, Spiller inactive. Were you happy with that mix in terms of who was running and in what situations? Would you bring Spiller up? If so, when? Talk to me about that running back room.
I think a big part of the lack of success in the running back room for me was just noticing the personnel typing we had. We seldom had any heavy sets. I don't think I saw 2 tight ends on the field at any one time. Sure, we utilised Sander Horvath as the inline kind of fullback. Yeah. I would have actually liked to have seen Josh Kelly probably used a little bit more. I thought he was actually looking good. So I think it's probably just a scheme thing. There was a combination of the run blocking being kind of there, and then there's the guys not seeing the hole or, making that cut just a little too late. And, we got a couple of, I think Eckler said in his press conference, we got a few 8-yard runs, which are, it's all well and good, but there were gashes there. So, yeah, I don't think they were very happy with it either.
Do you change anything for Thursday night?
Room for improvement.
Would you call up Spiller? Do you leave the same 3?
Well, we're not going to see Donald Parham come in. Do I see? Oh, look. No, I think we keep the same 3.
Same again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we keep the same 3. I think the experience in the coach is just going to rock Isaiah Spiller. We'd be throwing him into the fire.
Agree, 100%.
Yeah, so
debut him against the Jags or the Texans or something like that. And my question for you, Jack, we've said precious little about the offensive line so far. You are our offensive line resident specialist guru, Buddha. Maybe who you thought our best performer was, who might have struggled. Zion Johnson's debut. Let's chat some O-line.
Well, given the fact that in week 18, the right side of the line got abused and Herbert was running for his life and taking some big licks, the fact is we gave up no sacks this week. There are a few pressures, I get that, but no sacks. And Herbert looked calm. As I mentioned before, he looked confident in his line. And I thought, to be honest, Pipkins is all we need Pipkins to be there. He, big ass against possibly, one of a top 5, maybe top 6 pass rushing tandem in the league. Yep. The fact is, when I watched Pipkins closely, I wasn't watching too many others other than Zion Johnson, and I thought Zion Johnson, what a debut, realistically. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. God, that guy's strong. But Pipkins was doing a really good job to force Crosby wide, and that allowed Herbert to step up into the pocket where he makes those really calculated, and that zipping pass to DeAndre Carter. There was a bit of pressure coming at him, which is really wonderful because last year I kind of felt Pipkins, Norton, or whoever it was on that right side would just get bull rushed and Herbert would have nowhere to actually step up into the pocket. The pocket was really crowded. So I thought the pocket for Herbert was very clean. Filer didn't have the best day, I didn't think. But again, we didn't need them to be anything incredible. Slater just starts off from where he left off last year, which is incredible. And Lindsley, you can tell that there's a calmness and connection between Justin and Corey there. So I thought, on the whole, everyone was really worried about Pipkins and he's not going to do very well. I thought he did fine. Run game, not so good, but pass game, very, very serviceable. And if you can do that against Crosby and Jones, then 2 thumbs up from me. That's a pass mark.
Me too.
Yep.
I've got one more question for you, Alistair. Ooh. Can I just say that there was a play when Derek Carr had handed the ball off and he had to block Joey Bosa head on. Do you think that Derek Carr actually shit himself when he saw Joey Bosa coming at him, or do you reckon he kept his dacks clean?
Well, if the rest of the game's anything to judge by, I think he might have, because it's the only thing that explains the kind of haphazard, hunch, helter-skelter kind of quarterback play for the rest of the game. So I'm going to say, good call, Jack. Change of undies needed. Yeah, look, we poke fun at Derek Carr, but he did have a bad game. He really did. He arguably single-handedly lost their team the game. We've won the game by 5 points despite forcing 3 turnovers, and Derek Carr missed a wide-open Darren Waller for a touchdown relatively early in the game as well, where McDaniels had schemed it up perfectly, and you're going, oh, Can't remember who he'd isolated him on, but essentially there was no stopping him as long as Carr put the ball
DJ.
out in front. It was DJ, it was.
It was Dermot James, yeah.
And he has just missed him. So there's that miss. There were, fumble, strip sack kind of issues, just holding the ball forever, throwing it to the opposition. Needs to do better than that if you're going to talk trash to us on Twitter, Raiders Nation.
Yep. Get pressure on Carr early. That's the secret to success. We all know
For sure. I think we would have spoken about that last week, to be honest. Getting on him early and, yeah. Well, you both really just pummeled into all the questions that I had prepared for the two of you. After seeing your in the flesh blow up at Dustin Hopkins, it really went on sort of spoken that he missed a field goal, a 49er. It's look, we won't bash him because it's better than we've had for the most part. But guys, anything else you want to finish up with regarding the Raiders? Al?
We've had a good long discussion, so we should move on. But look, it's probably noteworthy that there's a lot of talk about Joe Lombardi, and we haven't necessarily tucked in detail about that. Let's just say I think it's a combination of getting a bit tight, but also some failures to execute. And I dare say we're not having this conversation had certain opportunities been taken, and you maybe barely noticed the play calling if that's the case. Offense still scored 24 points, but when the defense gets you the ball 3 times, you need to be doing a bit better. He started by acknowledging his issues to Daniel Popper the other day, which is the perfect start. You've got to acknowledge you've got a problem to address it. So we'll be watching that, no doubt, against Kansas City.
Cool. All right. And with that, right along to Kansas City. Just quickly, some Chargers news from the week. Press conferences, injuries. So obviously Keenan Allen injured his hamstring. They're saying a minor strain. So look, I wouldn't expect him back, another 3 or 4 weeks at minimum. JC Jackson still day to day. They're no training today. They put him through a solo workout, and there's a jog through tomorrow. They'll just see how he sort of comes out of that, and will probably be another game time decision. Donald Parham ruled out. This hamstring's seeming quite innocuous. Tranquil and Slater reported back soreness, but there's no training today, so that's just how that's ended up. As far as the press conferences go, look, they were showing glowing praise to the team effort. Coach Staley not surprised, by the likes of Khalil Mack getting 3 sacks. I think that's very stoic of him, but it's awesome to see. And also, he emphasised the belief, you touched on it aplenty before, Jack, the belief in the depth of the wide receiver room and the members on our practice squad. The ability to call up guys and just find the best way for the team to achieve the output of Keenan Allen on top of everything else. As far as anything else goes, we've had Christian Covington replace Braden Fehoko on the active roster. Al, I'm going to throw to you just to run us through that a little bit before we get into the Kansas City Week 1 review.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Because it's an interesting one because it's clearly incensed Chargers Twitter because you've had a player who's made the initial 53, given an emotional, poignant press conference about making the 53, which Jack spoke elegantly about on an earlier podcast episode, then to be somewhat demeaned and embarrassed by being waived so that Christian Covington could be brought onto the active roster. Why might you do this? The short answer, even though no one has articulated it, appears to be because if Christian Covington was on the starting 53 at the start of the season, his contract for the year would become fully guaranteed. I suspect the Chargers always wanted Covington as their 6th interior defensive tackle, but did not want to fully guarantee his contract. So strategically, they've thought Covington's a guy who's unlikely to be picked up off waivers, or we're willing to risk that. Conversely, we quite like Fehoko and don't mind stashing him right now, so we do not have him exposed to the waiver wire. We will do that instead a week into the season when perhaps less teams are scouring the waiver wire because their rosters are full. So it's a dirty, cutthroat, financially savvy, if you think of it that way, move to say, look, this was always the plan. Now what we've done is given some optionality where if Covington's not very good, we don't guarantee his full salary. We're going to risk that we're going to be able to sign Faheko to the practice squad. Lo and behold, they were correct, like Michael Bandy. But I might throw to you quickly, Jack. What's your take on the cultural impact of something like that? When you praise competition, Brandon Staley could barely even speak to it on the press conference yesterday. He described it as, some procedural reasons, but it smelled like it was not his decision to make. What's your take on it all?
I found it very strange, and I don't think Brandon Staley is a person to sign a guy who's been cut twice before, parade him, as you said, Alistair, in front of the media, give an impassioned, emotional, motivational speech, and then cut him. That doesn't seem like it's anywhere near Staley's playbook. Not even the same office, not even the same organisation. So it smells funny to me. And I feel very sorry for Hoko. I really do, as does much of Chargers Twitter. Yeah, it makes sense financially, but would Staley really sign someone knowing that he wanted someone else and do that? I don't. It doesn't compute with me, and yeah, it smells a little bit fishy that it could have been a higher up decision due to our salary cap implications. That's all I really want to say on that. Yeah, quite disappointed.
Be quite minor implications on the salary cap. What would be
Right.
the 1.5, something like that?
Not a significant amount, right? Because
Yeah,
you're still signing someone to fill the space. You're talking about nickels and dimes, as our cousins across the Pacific like to say. But look, maybe they feel they need to roll over every cent with some of the cap issues they're going to have next season. But definitely one that tugs at the heartstrings in a negative way.
Yep.
I tend to agree with you. Al, do you want to get us into a little bit of what KC showed last week against
Do I have
Cardinals?
to?
Yeah. Just this week, and then one more week later in the year.
All right, it is a Chargers podcast after all. So this week we play the Kansas City Chiefs. Their week one wrap-up was quite simply this. They dominated the opposition. They beat the Cardinals in Arizona 44-21. Patrick Mahomes threw for 5 touchdowns. 2 of those to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 1 to Travis Kelce, Mecole Hardman, and Jody Fortson. The offense allowed 0 sacks. They lost the 1 turnover. It was a fumble. Travis Kelce had 121 yards and a touchdown. Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably had his best game. He actually showed juice as a receiver and as a runner. Isaiah Pacheco showed a bit later in the game. And on defense, even though they did not turn the ball over, they looked very impressive. L'Jarius Sneed was sensational, shutting down their wide receivers, and also had a sack of his own. Nick Bolton at the linebacker spot, 9 tackles, looked supreme. It was a whitewash. The best stat from the game is they had 33 first downs from incredible. 66 total plays. That is, it's a whitewash. Everyone knows Andy Reid does this. He cooks stuff up. Mahomes looked comfortable. They looked like the Kansas City Chiefs we've known now for about 8 seasons. And I did not like what I saw because they're going to be mightily difficult to beat this week. So let's get straight into it. Andy, what do you think are like some obvious strengths of this Chiefs team and that pose threats to us on Thursday Night Football?
Well, to be honest with you, you sort of mentioned it before. I think a big one for me, and it's actually off the field, is just the coaching experience that Andy Reid has over Brandon Staley. And all on board Coach Staley, but Andy Reid just, like you said, he just cooks this stuff up. And in the tight moments, that could be the game decider. You've got 2 superstar athletic freak quarterbacks. Both can win games out of the palm of their hand, but depends which coach at the end of the day can put them in the right position to do so. Jack, what do you see as Chiefs' strengths and potential issues for the Chargers coming into this matchup?
Yes, be warned. those who doubt Andy Reid going into his lab and not only cooking up cheeseburgers, but cooking up an offense that is Tyreek Hill-less. Travis Kelce, when is this guy ever going to stop? He's now entering, if he can do what he did last game, this year and make it consistent, he's now moving into, if not in the top 10, but top 5 tight ends of all time. They've gotten the ball into Edwards-Helaire hand. His first 2 years kind of was a bit like a fart in a bathtub. It sort of sounded interesting. It sort of smelt a bit, but didn't really go anywhere. So to see him back up and running is dangerous. I think that's going to require a lot of our linebackers, and we saw when we had Kyle Van Noy have to guard or cover a running back out of the flat there. You know what happened there? He got abused. So yeah, it's a pretty impressive Chiefs team. So I think we're going to match them. It's going to be a blow for blow. But yes, it's impressive and things, but I think we're just as impressive too.
Let me mention one other clear strength that was frightening to see. Chris Jones had one of his Aaron Donald games. Yeah. Like, he was back to full force. He had 6 total pressures, and it looks like he's got more help around him because Carl Loftus had 6 pressures on debut, and Mike Dana had 6 pressures. They had 28 in total. This is not the same Chiefs defensive line, and Chris Jones is going to line up against the rookie. And it's going to be a massive test for Zion Johnson. I can't wait to see it. I know, Jack, I can see you nodding and salivating like a rabid Wolverine. It's going to be something to watch. Right. Corey Linsley's going to have to help him out as much as he can, but Chris Jones was on fire, and that spells issues for the Los Angeles Chargers.
But, I mean, in saying that, I also think that their defensive line is probably one of their more weaker units if we look at it from a total. Outside of Chris Jones, who we all know is an absolute dominant beast sometimes, because it's not all the time. The difference between he and Donald does it week in and week out. Chris Jones, he's had a couple of injuries over the last couple of years, but he tends to be a little more up and down. And you're right, Carl Loftus had a big game, but he's a rookie. So We're getting him in the second week, so I don't think rookie fatigue is going to set in. But are you going to get that production out of him in week 6, week 7, week 10?
Our line is not Arizona's either.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
the other thing, right? You know, they're going up against the hot mess in terms of an offensive line there. So outside of Jones and outside of Carl Loftus, yeah, there's a little bit. But Frank Clark, you know, is kind of looking like not a great return on investment now, 50-50. But, I mean, you know, the Chiefs' defensive line, they ended last year, I think, with the 20th in team pressure rate at 32%. And Jones and Frank Clark were the only 2 players that stood out with 30 pressures for the year. So, yes, they're probably going to get a little bit more production out of, what have got there? Dana, Kando, I think his name is, Tershawn Wharton, Stallworth and those guys. But I still think that's an area where we can attack, and I think we'll be far more stout than Arizona's line.
Yeah, nice. Another one for me, I guess. Even though L'Jarius Sneed had a good game, I still rate our passing offense on their secondary. Look, I really think that's an area of the game. If the sort of 3-headed monster that we want to try and run with in the backfield doesn't sort of pan out, I've jumped straight into Chiefs' weaknesses and Chargers' opportunities here. But I mean, look, they're formidable across the field, so you've really got to not dig deep. I've got to show more faith in our team. Jack, what do you reckon? What are some Chiefs' weaknesses that we can exploit?
I think the biggest one that sticks out to me, and it's not a play or a scheme, I think it's just consistency. The last year showed that the Chiefs weren't consistent, is that they had a game like this where Mahomes goes off for 5 or 6, and the next week or the next 2, he throws a pick. It looks a little unsettled. So if I'm reading the tea leaves, perhaps we might catch them a little tired. They've got a lot of rookies. We know that McDuffie's out, but they've got a lot of those rookies that are going to have to back up for the first time in their careers. So will we see the same production out of those players? That was the biggest one that popped out to me, other than perhaps the defensive front, is consistency. Yeah, let's catch them on an off week. What say you, Al?
You've gone macro. I'll go some micro stuff. Orlando Brown, left tackle, allowed 5 pressures last week. That's someone you can attack. He's a huge, gargantuan man. Probably well suited to your Max and Bozes of this world who rely on more power. Get Chris Rumpf bending around the edge and see how that goes, is one suggestion. MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster, they are inconsistent performers, like you were saying, Jack. Let's see how they back up. They're both prone to drops. Some of their defenders not great in coverage. Willie Gay as a linebacker sometimes. Rashad Fenton, the second cornerback. Go after him with Mike Williams if you have to. There are some weaknesses you can exploit. They might be few and far between, but they can be found just if you search hard enough.
Very good.
Yeah. I think another where we can really attack and what we have to be disciplined at is our pass rush to keeping Mahomes in the pocket. We know he loves to pop out the back and scoot. So there's got to be what I like to call, surely there's a technical name for it. In the comments, please let me know. But pass rush discipline. Don't try to sell the house to get to Mahomes, which you give him a space to get out. I think that's going to be really important, especially for Mac and Bosa. I remember watching sometimes Bosa last year would just do everything and go into a spin move and then sort of a dip to try and get there. And there's a huge wide open gap that a Mahomes or someone with a little bit of legs can actually get out and make a play. So I reckon we're going to really focus on that pass rush discipline. And Mac is very good at that. And you just saw him, the pure power that he has, whereas Bosa has a little bit more technique. That's another area where I think we can really attack them. Keep Mahomes in the pocket, keep him dancing around, don't let him get out.
That's a point that I was making that I saw from the output of Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day, is that pressure
100%.
up the middle and the containment to allow them to come through without creating a massive hole in the A or the B gap for Mahomes to scuttle through or flush him out the back or the side. Because he probably is more dangerous outside of the pocket on some of those throws he was making. Just
don't blitz him.
No, don't blitz him. Don't blitz him. And the last thing for me that I picked up is watching the highlights. I thought the Chiefs' tackling was poor as well. The Chiefs' tackling, their tackle discipline was not very good at all. And I was like, is that just me that I'm looking at it? And I did go and overall the PFF, and I know we don't like PFF anymore, but that's the only thing that stands out as far below a rating of 50. So for listeners, Alistair had a go at me for looking at PFF ratings on the group chat. So that's just a little broadside.
You've personalised a critique of PFF I had. That sometimes the subjective grades leave you pulling your hair out. I don't have any, but I would if I could. I like some of their objective counting stats. Very
Correct.
handy resource where you can go,
Very
I never knew that. Missed tackles, for example, Jack. A couple of things I know, like these are our rivals. They're our rivals. We know them very well. To beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you've laid out the game plan. A couple of other things I would like to see us do. When we approach stopping Travis Kelce, don't use Derwin. He's too good a weapon. Start off by trusting Michael Davis with Nazir Adderley bracketing with coverage over the top. Then if it's not working, fallback plans Derwin. But I want to see Derwin utilised as a weapon first and foremost. Also, don't be afraid to call some quarterback design runs.
Agreed.
Herbert is a 6'6", 260-pound weapon. How often does Mahomes take off and scramble when the Chiefs play us? Spagnuolo likes playing man coverage in the back end. That means the defenders have their backs to the quarterback. If Herbert gets back, can't see anyone open, take off and run. Let's do more of that to start this game. So I'm getting a bit impassioned.
Well, what I don't want to see is I don't want to see us try and take the ball out of Mahomes' hands too much by trying to run the ball overtly. Herbert is good enough, and we are a good enough offense to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes. I truly, truly believe that. So I really hope we don't go, we're going to go and try and set the tone with the run, because all you're going to do is go 3 and out, and all of a sudden, halfway through the first quarter, you're down 14-0, and you're going, what just happened? And you're playing catch up. So give Herbert the ball, let him cook, let our offense cook, because clearly there are the weapons there. That was probably the last point for me.
Great point.
Yeah, I really agree with you. You don't want it to end up in a shootout, because Mahomes on long field, quick drives is deadly. And if the matchup's not working with Travis Kelce up the seam, they're going to get bulk yards. That overtime touchdown he scored last year makes me want to cry. We've got to hang on to the ball. We won the possession counter, or the possession clock in week 1. That's something we really need to do, is just maintain possession of the ball and not be too conservative on the play calling. None of this run on first down. Let's give it a pump. Jack, any other keys to victory, or any other ways you see sort of us actually, what can we do to not have to go toe to toe with Mahomes? What can we do to jump him out?
Yep. Well, we saw that forced fumbles and turning the ball over rattles the Chiefs. Getting that early and making a play on defense early within the first 15 minutes, I think, is going to be really key. Whether that's
Come on, JC Jackson, play.
Yeah, come on. Or Bryce Callahan doing something, or you've got Adderley coming in and popping a ball out again. I think Staley's message will be, hey, defense, make a play. This is it. You got to rattle them a bit. They're rolling. They've got their confidence up. Let's go out there and rattle them some way, because I think the offense they'll do their job. But yeah, for me, if I was Staley, defense, go and make a play. Khalil Mack, go and make a play. Strip sack. Let's go.
Careful about their shovel pass bullshit in the red zone as well. We know they like to do that every time. It's suck it in the Cardinals. Don't let them throw an underhand pass to Kelce or Clyde Edwards-Helaire from the 5, please.
We're seeing more ball skills out of Drew Tranquil. Let's get some sneaky picks on that junk.
Yeah.
Result
Alrighty.
predictions. Let's do it, Andy.
I'm going to stick by the Chargers' hot form and go Chargers win 35-32. Big game. Max at it again. Sacks galore. We get the pressure on. That's my key to victory as well, Jack. Get that pressure on early and win the turnover battle. 35-32 Chargers.
Okay.
Yep.
Classic.
I'm going to go 41-35 Chargers.
Okay.
Big game. Overs
Massive
if
game.
you're betting.
It's like it. I'm going Chiefs 31, Chargers 28. In overtime, Dustin Hopkins misses a field goal. Harrison Butker doesn't, despite being injured, and shows everyone what a real kicker looks like.
We've seen that before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Look, it's the toughest. It's probably the toughest challenge in the NFL. The lid will be off, Chargers fans, if the team comes off a short break. No Keenan, maybe no JC Jackson. If you beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, you can start to believe.
Done it before. We can do it again. All right, let's end the show with a little bit of fun.
Just turn a bloody glass up, fella, just like that, but I'll get some of this, I don't want to most of it.
The quickest way is down Wallamaloo.
So, what you've just heard there is the segment that we're going to finish up this show called Bottoms Up Cobber. And if you don't know what a cobber is, that is slang for mate in Australia. Here we go. We're bottoms up. We're at the pub. We're at the bar. We're enjoying some Friday night drinks, boys. Who are you going to raise a glass to and say, well done on a good weekend of football? I'll get us going, and I'm going to start with the Chargers, and I'm going to raise a glass and go, Khalil Mack, you star. You set the tone. This is where we're at, baby. Cheers to you, Cobber.
Cheers to that.
I'll jump in. Bottoms up to Saquon Barkley. I called it maybe comeback player of the year. Okay, 18 carries, 164 yards and a touchdown. Giants win. Have yourself a shot, Saquon Barkley. Bottoms up, son.
Oh, yeah.
Nice one. I'd like to propose a toast and cheers bottoms up to Philadelphia and their trade for AJ Brown. What an outing. His first day as an Eagle.
Ollie Lloyd, we've been excited.
I'm calling around,
Yeah.
and you know who's buying me a drink? Is Mark McDaniels down in Miami. He's cooking up some pasta, like I said last week. Awesome win. Love to see the Patriots lose. Cheers to you, Mr. McDaniels. Looking all right. Tua, not so much.
Fantastic. Bottoms up for Geno Smith and Uchenna Nwosu. Both former Chargers, both beat Russell Wilson. Incompetence on full display organisationally. Nathaniel Hackett, have yourself a loss first round up. Shout to you, Geno.
All right, not to tread on your toes a little bit there, I'll expand a bit on yours, Jack. My cheers is to the rookie head coaches this week, led by Mark McDaniels and that incredibly ballsy call on 4th and 7. Brian Daboll goes for 2-point win with 1 minute left for the Giants. Matt Eberflus, huge upset win for the Bears over the 49ers. And Kevin O'Connell, very special. It looks like he's made a new man of Kirk Cousins. He's got Justin Jefferson, the Jet, and they flattened your supposed number one defense in the league, Green Bay. And special mention, I didn't forget him. I know he's a rookie head coach. Nathaniel Hackett, you're doing your job, brother. I didn't forget about you. One less win for the AFC West team. Why would you pay $50 million a year for your quarterback, not to even have him on the field to win you the game?
Nice one. I'm going to raise my glass and scull it and go for Justin Fields and the Bears. Winning. Justin Fields looked okay, had to really get into the game. The weather probably helped them win that game at the end, but cheers to the Bears. Good seeing you have a week 1 opening win.
Awesome. Tequila shots and Jägermeister and Jaeger bombs to Justin Jefferson, who caught 9 catches for 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is now the player with the second most 150-yard receiving games in the history of the NFL to this point in his young career. Guess who's first? Another Viking, Randy Moss. He is on a tear. So have yourself some shots, Justin Jefferson.
All right, my cheers, nice can of PBR, is to Taysom Hill. A lot thought that when Sean Payton disappeared from New Orleans that what would they do with tight end, backup quarterback, running back, gadget supreme, Taysom Hill. Had a great game. Just went nuts. So good on him for sticking it out. Cheers to you.
Cheers to... People think I malign this player, but cheers to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens for throwing the ball more than they ran. So well done, Lamar. You turned down one of the biggest contracts in NFL history to say, no, I'm going to bet on myself. Good luck to you, sir. I hope you have a great season. Cheers to you. Bottoms up.
Bottoms up to the number 1 overall draft pick from this year, who almost as a big FU to me on the pod and all the analytics crew who were just castigating that franchise for taking Trayvon Walker. He doesn't have production. He's just all traits. All those traits worked pretty well where he had a sack bending around the edge. That was incredible. And then he's picked a ball off. So, well, okay. All right. Begrudgingly, bottoms up. You've earned it. Cheers to you, Trayvon.
Yep.
I'm going bottoms up to Mitch Trubisky and Mike Tomlin for a stellar effort against the Bengals. With 4 interceptions and a fumble forced on Joe Burrow. Heck of an achievement to win that one in Cincy.
Yep. And my very last one is to none other than my favourite player in the league, and that's Aaron Donald. I didn't realise he'd actually submitted a retirement letter to the Rams in the off-season. But my word, you're out there, you're back playing football. I'm a happy man. I will drink with you anytime, Aaron Donald. This is a call out. I'd love to share a stein, many steins with you. Bottoms up, mate. I hope you have another ripper year.
Last one from me, and I will say, have a drink, Chris Collinsworth, because here's a guy who was really struggling with some laryngitis on the telecast with Mike Tirico, and he just couldn't get through the broadcast, but he fought through to the very end. And maybe you don't want some alcohol, maybe a soother or some hot lemon and ginger tea. So bottoms up, Cobber. You've done it a long time. You're now almost 70, and better luck next week for Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico.
I knew I'd seen you make a mental note of that while we watched that game over the weekend. My last bottoms up, finishing off the bottle with the new offensive players, 3 of which, DeAndre Carter, Gerald Everett, Xander Horvath, scored touchdowns in their first game as Chargers, and our 3 touchdowns for the game. So sensational effort, very promising. Chargers 1-0, facing the Chiefs Thursday night at Arrowhead Stadium.
Come on, baby.
We go 2-0 with a couple of cushy games coming up. Who knows? Well, we'll speak to you next week when we run through it. Thanks all for joining us. Al, Jack, you have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the Thunder Down Under.
Let's go,
Chargers
Bolts.
podcast.
Bye.
Backpedals looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it! Zigzag, 10, 5, high step, touchdown! San Diego!
Woo! Good night! Good night to all!